Hi guys, welcome to Too Cool for Middle School. My name is Megan and I teach middle school in the LA area in California. I teach history and English, and I have 6th grade English and 8th grade English. So my school days are a little hectic. I've got a lot going on, but this year we adopted new curriculum for our English classes, and we're using the HMH collections curriculum. And whenever I mention it on Instagram, it seems like a lot of people in other places are also using that curriculum. It's brand new to me, but I have taught a few collections at this point in the year. And so I thought I would just share with you how it's going for me so far, how it's going for us at my school, in case you are also using the same curriculum. I made a video about the first collection that I taught to my 6th grade students, and I will link that below. And today I'll be talking about the first unit that I taught to my 8th graders. So I'm just going to use the quick start pacing guide and just kind of walk through all of the texts that were in the unit and what we did with them. This was literally my first time ever seeing this curriculum, ever interacting with it at all. So I might not have done the best job of teaching through this collection, but I'll just give you, this is kind of like my first impressions, first thoughts about the unit. So the first collection is called Culture and Belonging. That was the first one that I taught, and that's what I'll be talking about today. And then collection 2 is The Thrill of Horror, which we also did, and that was really fun. I'll have to make another video on it. Collection 3 is The Move Toward Freedom, and we're saving that one since it has a lot to do with slavery. We're saving that one until they've got the background knowledge from their history classes, so we're going to do it later in the year. Collection 4 is Approaching Adulthood. I'm actually on collection 5 right now, which is Anne Frank's Legacy, and then collection 6 is The Value of Work. So we are not necessarily going in order. The other thing with all of these text sets is that you don't necessarily have to do every single one, and you can bring in some of your own sources if you want to, but it's just hard to know what you want to cut or what you want to add until you've done it once through. So that's what I'll be sharing with you today. So they do suggest that even if you change up the unit a little bit, that you stick with the anchor texts. And this one has 2 anchor texts. There's a short story called My Favorite Chaperone and a memoir called The Late Homecomer. So we started with My Favorite Chaperone, and this was the first time I had ever read anything from the collection. We used the computer rather than the textbooks so much for this one. My students all have their own Chromebooks. We're a one-to-one Chromebook school, so they've got access to all of the curriculum right there. Plus we do have the textbooks and then the close readers and performance task booklets. So it comes with a lot. I don't know if there's more than that our school just didn't get, but seems like we have a lot. So with this story, I played the audio so that we could all listen to it together and then just read along. And actually we did kind of switch it up. I remember now, my students would read through it on their Chromebook screen, but then the next day maybe we'd read through it just in the textbook, just to kind of try out the different ways, see if they preferred one way to the other. But I did really like using the audio for this one because they have professional actors that read all of the texts, and the girl who read this one was really good. She does a slight Russian accent because the character in this story is from Kazakhstan. And my students didn't know a lot about Kazakhstan. I doubt most people do. The only reason I knew anything about it really is because I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch Estee Lalonde's YouTube channel, and her boyfriend Aslan is from Kazakhstan, so I knew a little bit about it from him. And it is in between Russia and China, so people from there look Chinese or Asian, and they usually speak Russian, and then if they have emigrated somewhere else, then they speak that language. So I showed a couple of Aslan's YouTube videos so that my students could just see what someone from Kazakhstan looks like, and so they were a little bit thrown off to see this guy who looks Asian but had a British accent and could speak Russian. It's just not very common for us in Southern California, I guess. So I thought that was kind of fun. I'll link Aslan's channel below. We might have even watched a video from Estee's channel. They each have channels, and I don't know what they will have posted by the time you're teaching this, but I would just preview it. I really like both of their channels. I think they're great. They have great content. Occasionally they'll use a cuss word, so just preview it before you show it in your class. So this story is just about Maya and kind of adjusting to this new life in America when her parents are from Kazakhstan, and the things that she wants for herself are different than the things her parents want. And it's a very long story. It took us quite a while to get through it. And I can't remember the exact like activities that we did as we read along, but like we took some notes and we answered some comprehension questions, and I usually had them put any comprehension question answers in Google Classroom because it's a lot easier for me to deal with that than it was for me to deal with anything that they answered within the collections curriculum. And I wasn't sure exactly what else to do with this story, so then what we did was we moved on to another story called Bonne Anne, which is a personal essay. This kid was from Haiti and he moved to New York when he was very young, or maybe he was born in New York but his family's from Haiti, can't remember. But it's a story of him kind of, you know, feeling again like he was kind of in the middle of two cultures, his Haitian culture and his American culture, and they go to a soccer game and he finds himself rooting for Haiti and he feels like he's so proud of this country. So the two stories are similar in that the character is kind of in between two cultures. I think the character's name in Bonne Anne is like Jean-Pierre, and he's, you know, kind of connected to Haitian culture as well as American, so they're both kind of in the middle. Oh, another thing that I had my students do with, what is it called? My Favorite Chaperone, was make a Flipgrid. If you haven't used Flipgrid before, it's really fun. You should definitely make an account. It's really easy. Your students can make little videos, and I had them research Kazakhstan and tell us one interesting fact, and then it was a competition. Whoever's fact was the most interesting got like a prize the next day, or like the top 3 got a prize. And so I should have had them do that with Haiti as well. So I would suggest just having them do a little bit of background research on like the places that these characters are from, just so that the story comes alive a little bit more for them. So one thing that I'm struggling with a little bit with this curriculum is that, you know, we were a few weeks into the semester and I really didn't have any grades in the computer for my students because we were just doing a lot of reading and a lot of discussing and kind of like, you know, like the Flipgrids and stuff, but I didn't have a lot of data about their writing skills or even their reading comprehension because we were doing so much together. So you have to kind of supplement it yourself, I've found, unless I'm not accessing all of the activities that I should be within the curriculum. Maybe that's the case, but you need to add like activities, I think, in order to see their skills and like give them grades. So one of the first activities that I did was I had them make a Venn diagram. They could either choose Maya or Jean-Pierre. Sorry, Jensen moved the camera, so it probably looks a little bit weird. But anyway, they made a Venn diagram either based on Jean-Pierre or Maya. And we did these on Google Drawings so that we could like adjust the size of the circles and stuff if we needed to. And on one side of their Venn diagram was American culture, and then on the other side was either, you know, Haitian culture or Kazakh culture. And they had to find evidence from the text that showed that culture, you know, influencing their life. So they had to put a quote, I think it was 3 quotes on each side of the Venn diagram, and then in the center, either, you know, ways that both of those cultures were influencing their life, or maybe ways that like their parents had adopted a little bit of American culture. So that was a really interesting way to look at it, and then a good chance for them to practice like actually using textual evidence to prove something. And then at the bottom of their Google drawing, they just added another text box and wrote a paragraph. And I think they had to use a quote from each section of the Venn diagram. They could just choose the one that they liked the best and write a paragraph about how this character was influenced by 2 different cultures or 2 different countries. And so then that was a chance for me to see their writing and see how they are able to incorporate text into their writing and whether or not they're able to elaborate upon evidence. And so all of those things were good for them to do at the beginning of the year with me, because then I could see where we needed to still work. That took a couple of days. But I thought that was a really good assignment, and I'll definitely do that again next year. And then after we had done that Venn diagram, and they'd already had practice with the format and everything, I had them make a Venn diagram about themselves and 2 cultures that influence them. So since we live in LA, like there are always multiple cultures influencing us. I was saying on Insta stories yesterday, like Jensen says thank you in Chinese. And for a couple days I couldn't figure out what he was saying. I'm like, why won't he say thank you? But he says, like, I know I'm pronouncing this wrong, but like shishi. And we've got stores and restaurants and all kinds of ways that like different cultures influence us every single day. And then it just so happened that in my class, there was not a single like European American student. So they all had like the American side of their Venn diagram because they do live in America, and so they had to write about how American culture influences them, like maybe they eat American food or watch American movies, or even, you know, just like how American school is. And then on the other side, they had, you know, how their Chinese culture influences them, or how their Indian culture influences them, or their Nepalese culture, or Egyptian culture, or Mexican culture, or Burmese culture influences them. So it was such a cool way to get to know my students. I really liked seeing their final projects, and they could include pictures and bullet points on this Venn diagram. So they could show like a food that they eat at home on one side, and then like a food that they eat from 7-Eleven on the other side, or like a Korean pop star or something that they like to follow, and then like a American pop star on the other side. And we spent a couple days on these, and then I had them present them in front of the class. Okay, so anyway, that was the first part of the unit. That was like several weeks to do all that. Okay, then we read this informational text called A Place to Call Home, and it was boring as heck. I don't suggest that one. I don't think that it was good. I mean, I love reading informational text, but that one was so boring. And I don't think it was very illuminating, and I just didn't like it. My kids hated it. So I have a little X through that one. I won't be teaching that one again next year. I could find 10 articles about immigration that are way more interesting than that one. Okay, so then we also read the memoir, The Late Homecomer. It's from the perspective of a girl. She's from Laos. So I really like that all of these stories are from the perspective of kids who are from like places that are not as well known to my students. So even though I have like a really diverse group of kids and we've got representation from all over the world, we didn't have any kids from Laos or Haiti or Kazakhstan. So it kind of put everybody on like an equal playing field of like not knowing a lot about these countries. And so then they were able to research them a little bit and learn about some new places. So we did a little bit of background information on Laos. I think we did another flip grid, and this story was good. It just took a long time to read, and we hadn't done much writing at that point, so I just like moved on from that. I think I don't know that we did any special activity with that one. I think we just kind of answered some comprehension questions. My kids, their like grammar and capitalization and spelling is still lacking, so I think I just used that opportunity to have them practice the basics and made sure that they were getting that down. So it was very good. I'll probably do more with it next year. I just didn't do a lot with it this year. I don't think we read New Immigrants Share Their Stories or What to Bring. Darn it. Okay, next year I'm going to use What to Bring in the close reader, because now I know how to use the close reader so much better. Have your kids read it the first time through and just do all of the odd questions, because those are all like underlining and highlighting and taking notes. And then the second time they read through it, have them answer the evens, because those are all the comprehension questions. And then the last question at the end is always a combination of everything that they did, and so you can just answer the last question and, you know, just do participation points for everything else. And I have them answer that last question on Google Classroom. So at this point in the year, I didn't have all of those procedures down, but now that's definitely what I would do. Let's see, I just had them do all kinds of other things. We read book reviews of 2 books that I can't remember what they are now, but they were both about like immigrant students, like high schoolers. So I had them read book reviews about those 2 books and then write about which one they would rather read and why. And then as a surprise, I just bought those books for them and put them on the bookshelf because they were really interested in them. If I can remember what they are, I'll put them down below. It's all kind of like jumbling together now. Okay, we did Golden Glass in the close reader, and I thought that one was really boring too. I didn't really like it. I think next time I'll do What to Bring instead. I would do What to Bring instead of Golden Glass, personally, but you might like the other one. Okay, and then the other 2 that I loved doing were Museum Indians and Powwow at the End of the World. Powwow at the End of the World is by Sherman Alexie, and it's an amazing poem, but it doesn't make any sense unless you understand like the history of the Grand Coulee Dam. So I will link below the place where we got information about the Grand Coulee Dam. And we do community circles in my class every week, every Thursday usually. And so I think on like a Wednesday I had them do some research. They had to watch a video about the Grand Coulee Dam and read about it, and read it from, you know, the tribe's perspective. But I think actually before I had them do that, I had them just like look it up on Wikipedia, because when you look it up from like most perspectives, it sounds like this just amazing feat of engineering, and it's this awesome structure and provided all these jobs. And so, you know, they had like this very positive view of it. But then I had them read about it from the Native American perspective, and that complicates things. So that was like a day of research, and then we talked about it in community circles the next day, and they were very passionate about the Indians' land being taken through flooding, and it's just literally underwater. So that was a really cool day, and I'm really glad that I gave them all that background information. I began a master's degree in like the history of Native American education, so I've had a lot of classes on Indian history, Native American history. So, you know, I was able to just tell them a lot from like personal knowledge, growing up really close to a reservation, and from my studies. So we had a lot of discussions about like even DAPL that is going on currently with the pipeline. I gave them a little rundown of the history of like the Cherokee Indians and the Trail of Tears, which they're gonna learn about eventually in history class this year anyway. But I when I used to teach that, I went very, very, very in depth into that situation. And so once we put all those things together, they were just astonished at the way that we have treated Indians historically. So then that poem made a lot more sense. And I don't have the text with me, it's in the book. This doesn't have the actual text in it, but it's great for studying like structure and mood and tone, and it's a heartbreaking poem. It's really powerful. Like, do you just continue to forgive and forgive and forgive over and over again, like over the course of hundreds of years? And it's clearly from, you know, his perspective of like this happened to me because it happened to my ancestors. So am I going to continue to forgive for all of these atrocities, you know, for hundreds of years? So it's really, really good. And then I like that they put that Native American perspective in there. And I asked my students, like, okay, so far we've been reading about people who are immigrants from other countries and come here, and, you know, they're like adjusting to life in the United States. But now we're reading these stories about Native Americans who have been here since before any of us were ever here. So why are their stories included? And at first my students didn't know, but after we had read a few things and learned a few things, they were like, wow, they feel like immigrants in their own land when they come off of the reservation, or even just interact with white culture. They're made to feel foreign and like immigrants. So that was really powerful. And then Museum Indians is also really good. I'm trying to decide if I would do that first or second next time. I guess second. And I'm a big Sherman Alexie fan. I think in my classroom I have like The Lone Ranger and Tonto Get in a Fist Fight in Heaven, is that what it's called? And The Absolutely True Story of a Part-Time Indian and Reservation Blues. I've got quite a few of them. Oh, and then you know what else I did? Before we watched the video, I showed them the preview for Smoke Signals. Smoke Signals was based on Sherman Alexie's writing. And I think he was involved in writing the movie too. So I think there's maybe like one cuss word in there. But since my kids were so unfamiliar with Native American culture, Indian culture, currently it's more acceptable to say Indian, but because at my school we have so many Indians from India, it was easier for us to say Native American because we were like getting a little bit confused sometimes. And if you can just say the name of the tribe, that's always preferred. But anyway, that movie is one of my favorite movies ever. I think it might be on Netflix, and the preview is on YouTube, so you can just show them that much. I wouldn't show them the whole movie in class probably, and I wouldn't like necessarily like endorse even his books in class, just because some parents could get upset because there's language and stuff in them, but nothing they're not hearing at lunchtime every day. So I make them available if kids want them. And I think his perspective is really good, his writing is really good, and it's so funny. Like, all of his books are hilarious. Smoke Signals is hilarious. Another like Netflix documentary that I suggest is called Real Engine, like Reel, and and it's like the history of how Indians are portrayed in movies, literally since the inception of video and of recording. So as a teacher, that's a good one to watch if you just want a little bit more about the history of Indians and their interaction with white culture. So it'd probably be a little much to like go that deep with your students into this unit. I spent a little more time probably than most people do on those two stories. But that's one of the good things about collections, is it kind of gives you some options and you can spend your time where you want to spend it. We did a collection test. So there is like, you know, a multiple choice long unit test that comes with this that we did at the end. And you want to look over it ahead of time because you just want to make sure that you did cover all those skills that they're going to be tested on the test, because if you skip some of the things in the unit, then you might skip some of the lessons that prepare them for the test. So just know ahead of time what's on the test if you're going to give that to them. The performance task, I remember that performance task 1 does not go along with unit 1 or collection 1. And at first I had them start a performance task, but it didn't make any sense. Like, they were not prepared for it at all. So I need to familiarize myself better with the performance tasks so that I can utilize them a lot better. So I know that's a little bit rambly and jumbled, but I will try and link all of the resources that I can below this video. I hope that this is helpful to you. The reason it's kind of rambly and jumbly is because that's how it felt teaching it. I think next year it will be a lot easier now that I've seen everything. But if you have also used this curriculum, I would love to hear how you taught this unit, if there was anything else that you added or maybe cut. I love that we can be like one big 8th grade English team here on YouTube and just help each other out. So leave a comment below if you have also taught this. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and for ignoring this weird sunlight patch in the video the whole time. I'm sure that was annoying, but anyway, have a great day. Bye.